Hello and welcome. This is round 4 of the Armory event that took place at the end of July in Barcelona. My name is Max, also known as MJet on Discord, and I will be shoutcasting this last round of the event. We've got Perry on Prism versus myself on Boltyn, and we're both 3-0, so this is the finals, if you will. The winner gets to take home a nice playmat. And we saw that I won the die roll, and I decided that I want to go second, which I think I mentioned this in other rounds before. I think in Blitz generally is something that you would like to do, just so you can really pressure the hand of the other player. We see we've got a yellow pitched pommel and then the 7-point red herald that has been fully blocked here. And now the question is, does Perry have a follow-up attack, or does he choose to rather put something in arsenal for his next turn? We can see he's got a soul shield and another herald in hand, so he could potentially elect to attack here, trying to push some damage on the first turn, or he could put something in his arsenal in order to set up the second turn, and he chooses to do the latter. He puts something in arsenal. So we can see that I chose to keep a Bolt of Courage, and we can also see that I chose to shuffle my equipment into my deck, unfortunately. But this is not the most competitive event, so no big deal. I'll just going to put it to the side if I draw it, and then draw a normal card. So I'm currently debating on this turn. I believe there's a bunch of Bolt of Courages in hand. I think there's 3 of them. And the question is, how do I proceed from here? So I will play a Bolt of Courage and charge an Engulfing Light, I think. And so this is coming in for, so this is likely a red. I think this is the red bolt. So this is coming in for 3 or 4 if it is blocked by an attack due to the charge being, the Boltyn ability being active since I charged on the first turn. And if this enters, I get to draw an additional card. So the question is, if you every time you see something like this when you're playing against Boltyn, you really kind of have to consider how you want to block here. So this is not only because blocking, you want to prevent damage, of course, but the thing is that if you block with an attack and it goes up by it gets the additional point from the Boltyn hero ability, that means the Boltyn attack reaction, the hero ability, can be used to give that attack go again. So a lot of the time it is actually better to not block the attack, or block with equipment, block with non-attack actions, defense reactions, and so forth, just in order to prevent that something like this is happening. So Perry said, alright, I'm actually going to do just that. I'm going to say no blocks on the first attack. And so this actually forces out the Snapdragon Scalers here in order for me to have like a bigger turn. Now blocking the Raiden is usually a good idea, because that one has natural 0 power, and then with a charge it has 3, so giving it go again with the Boltyn ability is always very easy. However, as you can see, I had a very strong turn lined up. There was also a Bolting Blade, so that's a 7-point attack coming in at the end of the turn. So really putting on a lot of pressure, and this is really the big upside of going second. As you can see here, yes, I used up equipment early, but I dealt 5 points of damage, and I took 3 cards from Perry's hand. So he's now going to have a harder time coming back and putting on some pressure on the return. He only has those 2 cards available. Yes, this was a card that he used to block. So we see what he did keep, and maybe he chooses. So he's got 2 heralds here, and there's a couple of options he has to consider here. He chooses to just pitch and play it out. Ooh, that's not a good sign. I say no blocks, so that usually means I have some evil, nasty plans for the next turn. So the reason is you can maybe think about using your gloves here, because Boltyn does tend to have a surprising amount of 6 or 7 power attacks. However, as we can see, I just had basically the perfect start. I had a V of the Vanguard that I drew on the second turn to put into my arsenal, and now I get to do the big thing that I always like to do. So use the hardened cross trap to play the V of the Vanguard for free, charging 2 or 3 cards. In this case, even 3 cards, and having a huge turn where all of my attacks get additional damage, and then follow up with the Raiden, of course, and usually 1 or 2 zero-cost attacks as well that get buffed. So this is representing 6 damage. If it is blocked with an attack action, obviously it goes up to 7. Now, however, the debate of whether you want to block with an attack action or not is not as relevant. The attack is already buffed, so the Boltyn ability to give go again to attacks is basically active for the entire turn, just because V of the Vanguard buffs all attacks higher than their base power, so you can just give them go again, no problem. So Perry is debating what to do here. He says, well, I'm just going to take this first hit. This might not be the worst idea, since usually I will keep the scary attacks that have on-hit triggers for last, so that you don't really know what's coming and how much to block. He says, okay, so the Raiden I do want to block. This was again a 6-point attack going up to 7 because there was an attack action used to block. He's double checking whether it goes up by just 1, and the answer is yes, it's just +1. However, now, as I said, this is the scariest attack because this is a Bolt of Courage coming in for 5, maybe 6, and if it hits, I get to draw a card. So that's a huge deal. That would represent another card in Arsenal, or I could even give it go again in the hopes of drawing another 0-point attack and basically killing my opponent immediately. So he just says, I'm going to take this. I'm going to say no blocks. And now this is the kind of the thing, and I say, I'm going to gamble. I'm going to give this go again. I'm going to draw a card. And if this is a 0-point attack, you're basically dead immediately. However, it is not, so I decide to just arsenal that card. This is obviously still very good for me. I get to have like a bigger swing next turn. My opponent is already at 2 life. He only has 2 cards in hand, so the likelihood of him representing something that I want to block is rather low. However, he does find basically the one thing that I really do want to block, being a Herald of Erudition. So even though this is only a quote-unquote 2 card hand, this basically has to be blocked, because if it's not blocked, he deals 5 damage and then gets to draw 2 cards, which could represent the additional 8 points that I do have left over from my life. So there's a good chance that I will choose to block this one here. However, you might say, well, the maximum that he can do with 2 cards is most likely going to be 8 with like one of the Red Herald that does 7 + 1 arcane. So maybe if you just take this and you get to keep a full hand and kill your opponent on the swing back. But I decide, no, this is too scary, too dangerous. I'm just going to block this using my equipment, preventing the draw, preventing also Perry putting another card into Arsenal, which might potentially be a defense reaction in Arsenal for something like that, which might stop the turn that's coming now. And also this is just me just having a good turn lined up where I don't really need the last card in hand. I decide to pitch Illumina Ascension. So talking about things that look scary, well, if a Boltyn player is pitching Illumina Ascension to play a Take Flight, that means he has some very good thing indeed to do after that, and as we will see shortly, is I actually just happen to have both of my Illumina Ascensions in hand, so I elect to pitch one, and I will then even have an additional resource to use my gloves to pump my weapon, and then come in with said weapon for 5 points twice. So that is obviously an amazing turn off of which are end up being 4 cards, right? 1 Arsenal and then 3 cards, and I believe this is actually just too much at this point. Perry already used one of his cards in the hand to block, and another one to pitch for the for his equipment to block the first attack, and now with his 2 cards in hand he can block one of the Raiden swings, but the second one he will not be able to prevent, and that is actually a game over situation. So looking back at this game, thinking about maybe what could have been done differently. Well, first of all, obviously, I drew extremely well, so it's going to be very, very tough for Prism to do something about this kind of draw. However, maybe there was an argument to be made for for pushing more damage on the first turn. So trying to put more pressure on Boltyn early on. But the way that this played out, it might not have made a difference either way. And yeah, this was just a really strong draw. And there's just quickly an explanation on how all of these things work, and which cards were played, which were pitched, which were put into soul, and yes, shortly after we will agree on the victory here. So that was the Armory event that took place in Barcelona. I had a great time covering it. I had a great time playing it, and I was very fortunate to actually walk away with the win in the end, getting myself a sweet Boltyn playmat. And yes, I will. Hopefully, we will be able to present you with some more events in the future, and I would be very happy to see you there. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.